Uh, Hi, Ms. B. Thank you for coming today to talk in our post-observation conference after letting me observe you in the classroom.
You're welcome.
So I just wanted to start off talking about the lesson that you had prepared. If they can see above us. Okay. So you did a lesson in your classroom on sound, and can you tell us about your classroom?
The classroom is an integrated preschool program, so it's designed to have students with IEPs and students that are considered peer models integrated together so that they have peer modeling for the students to gain social skills and language. So right now the classroom is enrolled at 7 students. 6 of them have IEPs and 1 is a peer model. So we're still waiting for more students to get enrolled to make it a more even balance.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So the lesson that you that I was able to come in to see was a lesson on if objects could make sound or not. So the students had the task of identifying if an object made sound or not.
Yes.
So how do you think the lesson went as a whole?
I feel overall it went very well. The students were very engaged and excited about the sort of experiment that we were doing with sound. They understand what the objective was and picked up on the thumbs up, thumbs down routine. A few of them needed a few more supports along the way, but overall they got the objective. They understood what we were trying to accomplish, which was, can you identify whether an object is going to make sound? And we also practice making predictions, which is a big skill for preschoolers in all types of different curriculums.
So you had some crossover skills you were...
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. What do you think worked well in the lesson? And if you talk a little bit about that, could you tell me how you would implement that in a future lesson?
Well, I think that science is always a big hit for kids because it's so engaging and so hands-on. So anytime you can bring objects into a lesson, it always is going to bring up the engagement a lot more. I feel like I do a really good job of bringing vocabulary and introducing vocabulary prior to starting lessons. I do it with stories, I do it with math and science, and have it displayed around the classroom. This particular activity went into our science center later, so the vocabulary went along with it. So I feel like that's a strength that I have, and because I have students who have language delays and are ELL students, that vocabulary really helps scaffold the lesson for them. So, and I would use the vocabulary, again, I would use the thumbs up, thumbs down routine into other activities in the classroom and even in small groups.
Okay. I did notice that the thumbs up, thumbs down got them very excited, and you used the visual along with it to really help them. So they weren't just doing a thumbs up, thumbs down. You had a little paper visual that you were, and you modeled that for them before the lesson even started.
Well, we were doing a question of the day every morning, and it had like a yes and a no, but because they're not readers, I wanted to add something to that so that they could understand what side they were choosing. So I added a thumbs up and thumbs down to that visual so that when they were coming up to put their name under the question of the day, so maybe it was like, are you wearing blue today? Yes or no. So they're not,
they have some familiarity.
Yes, so they had that symbol down already.
Nice. Would you change anything in the lesson?
I might add more objects, or maybe even add on a part about identifying some sounds instead of just identifying whether something made a sound or not. But what if I make a sound, or I use my technology to make a sound? Can you identify what that sound is? Just bringing some technology into it.
Okay, so the technology piece interests me. So what kind of materials do you have in your classroom that would allow you to incorporate the technology piece of the sound?
Well, I have the smartboard and I also have an iPad. So other times I've used an iPad during a small group, and there are some games on YouTube where it makes a sound and then slowly the picture emerges as to what the sound is. But you can pause it and give them a chance to respond. So that's something you can do as a whole group on the rug. And it's pretty quick. I mean, you could do it as a filler.
Yeah.
We got 5 minutes before it's time to get on the bus. Let's work on identifying some sounds. Or you could also do it as a more organized small group where you're looking to take some assessment.
It sounds like you really reflected on your lesson already, so I'm really excited to talk to you about it. I noticed that you started your lesson with addressing the objective right from the get-go. And these are pre-K students, as you had said, 3 and 4-year-olds. Is this a strategy that you begin with every lesson? And if so, why or why not? Why do you think, why would you do it or why would you not do it?
I try to. I'm going to be honest and say that not every single time that happens, because sometimes you're trying to wrangle cats. You know, these are preschoolers.
Okay.
So it's easier when I have it written down, because then I'm like referring to it. When I'm doing a story, it's also easier, as long as
So when you say written down, do you mean in your lesson plan, or do you
no,
mean
like
when
on a
it's
chart.
prepared?
You know,
Okay.
like if we're doing, I have a pre-done graph or a pre-done anchor chart about WH questions.
Mhm.
We can answer questions about a book. So then I'm saying, okay, here's our goal today. We're going to answer questions about this book. So it's easier sometimes to remember it when I have that. So it's something that I should do every single time, and I try to do every single time. But you know how things go.
Fair enough. Did you feel you were successful in meeting that objective?
I do.
Identifying this now.
Yes, I do feel like it was a successful lesson. I feel like the students were able to identify which objects would make sound. And sometimes kids will just start to be like, oh, I'm just going to guess and not really think about it. But at the end, they really understood why something make a sound and why something didn't make a sound. And then when I went on and asked them to see if they could tell me something else that makes sound, then that really showed that they got it, because they were able to identify
They
things
produced
that
it
made
themselves.
sounds. Right, yeah.
Right.
So they were able
Yeah.
to come up with objects
Yeah.
that make sounds afterwards. So that showed.
Yeah. So
that
your
they got it.
scaffolding and then your sequencing of the lesson was deliberate.
Yes.
I know you spoke a little bit about your strengths earlier, vocabulary being one, and I believe you also spoke about how what you had done during your whole group lesson, the children will have extra practice with later in a science center.
Yes.
Not to belabor anything, but could you give me a little bit more of what you think your strengths are as an educator?
I feel like one of them is making lessons engaging and keeping kids sort of hooked on it. So like I said, science is a real easy one to keep kids hooked on it, because it's usually very hands-on. There's something happening, there's going to be some sort of outcome, like an experiment. We did volcanoes, like boom, they're going to be engaged in that.
Yeah.
So other things, it's a little bit more challenging. If you're just reading a story and there's not really anything for the kids to do, it might be difficult to get them to stay engaged. But having some sort of picture for them to come up and put on a felt board, some way to keep them engaged in the story, because they're having to come up and answer a question sort of immediately, or even just reading the story in a very engaging way, like animated, exactly. So I think I do that very well. I had a grandparent once that grandparents tell me that I was the best story reader that she ever heard. She's like, you read that book so nicely.
So you can even keep the older people.
Yes, I did. I had her hooked. And also trying to bring the lessons out into the classroom afterwards. So if I've read a book and it has parts and pieces to it for the felt board, that can stay out and the kids can manipulate it and use it again afterwards. If I do a science lesson, it can go either into our sensory table or into the science area so that they can use it again later. If we did a sorting lesson for math, I'm going to put some sort of sorting work into the math center so that they can follow up on that skill.
So you're always extending on the lesson and the learning.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, twofold kind of question. Do you have anything you would improve upon?
There's always ways you can improve. There's always ways to get the kids more engaged, or involve them a little bit more, or make it a little more rigorous. So each time you do something, you have to think about, okay, what could I have done differently, or what could I do, not better, but how can I tweak it a little bit to make it, a little more engaging for all of the kids, or to get a little bit more out of it.
And that goes back to the question I had asked you earlier, and you had, like I said, you've already reflected on this, so that's amazing. You were going to bring in some technology on this piece.
Yes.
Beautiful. Is there anything else you can add? I did cut you off there.
No, I think that there's always a chance. There's always opportunity to improve. There's always opportunities to tweak a lesson, add something else into it. have more objects. My afternoon class is very small, so I didn't need a lot of objects, but you could have it be where you had 14 or 15 objects, and then the kids could come up and shake the object and then sort it themselves instead of having it be just myself doing it. So that's something to keep thinking about for next year when that lesson comes back around. How can I improve it a little bit differently?
You're almost setting me up for my next question, because one of the things I was going to ask you is, have you ever had the opportunity to teach this lesson other than with what I had seen? Have you taught it in the past, or have you taught it, to another class?
Yes, I did it last year with different groups of students, and this year it was different because I added the anchor chart and added the visuals of the thumbs up and thumbs down. And I did do it also because my class is 2 part day sessions. The kids in the morning also did the lesson, and it went pretty well. Also, it's a bigger group, few more challenging behaviors, but overall I feel like it went well, and they were also able to and use the activity again later in the science center.
So one of the things that you had said to me is that maybe in hindsight, next time you might try having them have a more hands-on, like them shake the object, or is there a reason why you thought that wasn't a good situation for this group?
I honestly hadn't thought of it, because it came with a few objects, and I added a couple of more just to make it a little more engaging. But as after it happened, and then I was thinking about it, how each year you want it to be a little bit different, because some students do return. So somebody who was sitting in front of me then will probably be sitting in front of me next year. And we want the lesson to be a little bit different so that kids do remember.
Right.
You might not think they do, but a lot of like, hey, we read that book before. Like, yeah, we did. So I would want to switch it up a little bit just to add another piece to another layer.
Oh, great. Again, another reflective part for you. So I noticed that you were doing the recording and responding for the graph. This would kind of go along with the idea of them making the noises or manipulating the objects to see if they make noise. Was there a reason why you put the thumbs up, or did you ever entertain the notion of them going up to put the thumb up themselves, or did you what was your thinking behind that?
Again, I didn't really think about the opportunity for them to come up, but it would be something that I could add in the next time. Sometimes it can be tricky if everyone doesn't get a turn with 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. So sometimes that's something that plays into to teachers thinking when they do stuff like that. Some kids roll with the punches and don't care if they get a turn, and other kids lose their mind when they don't get a turn. So, but it would be something to consider for the next time I do the lesson, to have it be some way for them to be more involved in the recording of it and of the manipulating.
And what time of the year was this lesson presented?
It was in the very beginning of the year. So it was sort of like an introductory lesson to thinking about sounds, because sounds for phonemic awareness play a big part in everything that we're going to do this year. Beginning sounds, rhyming words, ending sounds. So it was a very introductory lesson to thinking about listening, thinking about sounds, thinking about thumbs up, thumbs down, thinking about predicting, because all of that stuff is going to keep rolling forward into more challenging lessons and skills.
I also noticed during the observation that you had given some wait time when you asked the students to answer certain questions. But there was one student in particular that you repeated the question to, and when she was unsure and she had told you that she wasn't ready, you told her that she could keep thinking that you would come back to her. You then called on a couple other students, and they were very excited. They couldn't wait to answer. And when you went back to that first student, she had repeated something that another student had said made sound. So the question that you posed was, can you name? This was after your lesson, and you had posed, can you name something else that makes sound? And when she repeated what another student had just responded, you accepted that answer. And you had told her yes, and then you helped her to think of something by you actually made the noise of a cat and asked her what makes that noise, and she was able to say cat. Can you talk about that strategy?
Well, knowing this particular student and the language delay that she works to get through every day. And she does struggle with answering questions that are unfamiliar to her. So I really wanted to have her be successful and have her be able to access the activity and the lesson and the objective the same way everybody else did. So for her to be able to do that, I needed to scaffold the question, the information a little bit more for her, give her a lot of wait time, and then praise her for the answer that she was able to come up with, even if it was something somebody else said, because she still participated. She still understood that that was an answer and that she was able to say that answer, and that's something that makes sound. So it's something that we're working on with her, and and just something that we need. And preschoolers in general need wait time, regardless of if they have a language issue,
All
if they're
children,
ELL.
right?
Anything, like that's why vocabulary is important for all of them, you know what I mean? So that's just, they're still learning to do these things and process questions. And so for this little child, she does have some processing difficulty, so I wanted her to feel that she was able to do it just like everybody else was.